What up, people? Juliana's here. It is Friday night, January 15th, I believe. How the heck did that happen? I can't believe we're 2 weeks into the year already. I feel like I'm going to blink and say, how is it June already? But being very focused, thinking about being intentional this year, lots of goals, lots of excitement, and getting stuff done. I hope you are too. Please come on and join us. Please do not be shy. Lots of comments tonight. I'm really, really excited because, well, for two reasons. The topic we're going to talk about, or the topics, but one topic that I love in particular, and the person that I've got today as a guest is an old friend that I've been really looking forward to catching up with. So, essentially, there are two concepts here that I want to quickly cover. One is, I'm all about the smart self. I'm all about empowering the person. And what it comes down to is we are at a time of year where everyone's thinking about New Year's resolutions and goals and trying to follow through on whatever goals they've set for themselves. And we've got our goals and we've got the follow through. And tonight I want to focus on one of the most critical elements of the follow through, which is learning, growing as individuals. And I think there are a bunch of different ways we do that. We can do that formally. We can do that informally through relationships, just challenges in life. So I'm really excited to do that tonight, to talk about those things. I'm very passionate about learning and growth and development, performance, and all of those things. So excited about that. Second thing I'm really excited about is my guest tonight is Christopher Gunn, old friend. He and I met on the job and have stayed friends. But like a lot of us, over COVID especially, have sent the odd message here or there. So it'll be really, really great to catch up with him. And he happens to be a bit of a mover and shaker in the learning world. So we're going to talk about all of that with myself and my friend. I'm going to bring Christopher to our live stream. Here we go. Hey, Chris.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
Good. So good to see you. So excited.
So good to see you too. I'm really happy you could join us. Did you have any other exciting Friday night plans, or is this just lockdown?
Yeah, this is the highlight.
Awesome. Okay, good.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy to be the highlights. Cheers to that. A little cheers to those out there checking out the show. You have to drink when you say cheers. I don't know if that's all cultures, but it is Italian.
Mm-hmm. And eye contact.
And eye contact. Yeah, I'll do that again then. There we go. All right, folks. I hope those out there watching us are also kicking back and ready to have some fun. Christopher Gunn. Everyone calls you Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Except maybe like when you're in trouble, you get the
Yeah, exactly. Grandma, mom, that's about it. That's for the list.
Yeah, that's fair. They're allowed. Like it's just an entitlement. So what have you been doing? You've made some changes over the last, I can't remember how long it's been since you started your new role, but why don't you tell us a bit about that and where you're at, what you're doing there?
Yeah, well, it started with you, right? For everyone that's listening, I want everyone to know that Juliana is probably one of the most impactful people that have just kind of shaped my career. So with that said, introduction to learning, right? Got in learnography, a startup, moved from there to LinkedIn, learning, and that's kind of where I got into the private space, and have loved it. Really, just impacting people around the world, U.S., Canada, changing lives. And then from there, my most recent role, where I've been for, I think, coming on 8 months now, is a place called Degreed. So they're a very tiny startup based out of Utah, Salt Lake City. And they have offices in San Francisco and others. But again, focus in learning, startup, about 500 people. And I get to oversee Canada. So very, very excited for the role. And, it's just fantastic. It's great.
That's awesome. So Degreed. Now, I remember finding out about this brand a number of years ago on a trade show floor where they were telling me about the concept of sort of curating a lot of the great stuff that's out there to empower people to find the learning they need in one place. Now, that's my very layperson from a long time ago memory of what Degreed does. Can you tell me just a little bit about what's the goal? What's the purpose there?
Yeah. Degreed's looking to our slogan is jailbreaking the degree, right? And that's where the term kind of came about, Degreed. And the idea there is how can we empower people to drive and self-motivate, right? Take learning on their own, right? Do it on their own, drive their success, and kind of removing it from the administrator, the typical person that was responsible, the typical training coordinator, or the learning professional that was tasked to create learning for all employees. It's just not feasible, scalable, et cetera. So Income's Degree to solve for that learner experience. So it's an upskilling platform at the highest level there. And there's a lot of ways that we go about doing that, kind of injecting into the organization and then allowing employees to really self-drive their journey through our technology.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. I think that's really the way everything's headed anyway. It doesn't matter if you are talking about learning or music. You don't have to listen to whatever the DJ on the radio decides. You make your own playlist these days, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a very, I don't know if democratic is the right word, but maybe just this idea that we are self-empowered, which is really, really cool. So one thing that I am curious about is when we worked together, the company we worked at, Learnography, had I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 full-time employees, and we had a lot of contractors, just depending on which projects we were taking on at the time. But then you went to LinkedIn Learning, and now you're at Degreed. And I'm sure LinkedIn still had a very entrepreneurial spirit. But what's it like to go from small startup to hustle startup to startup that has the money and the strategy and 500 people to work with? What's that like?
It's been a roller coaster, Jules. Like it's really been a learning process, right? That intimate crowd that we had when we worked together at Learnography, it was very hands-on, all hands on deck. We kind of collaborated. There wasn't a set role. You kind of did a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Going to LinkedIn, it was massive 12,000, 13,000 people organization. Yeah. And us having a small satellite office in Toronto of 200, to your point, felt like a bit of a startup in a bigger entity or org. Degreed, though, now is a whole other ballgame because, as you said, we have venture capital funding. We are known in the industry. We are the trailblazer in the LXP space. So it's just nice to be part of something new. And the reality is in Canada, we're a little bit behind as far as technology goes. So it's nice to kind of be the first to bring this to the nation, right? To be part of that community.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I kind of like that. I've noticed that a bit about Canada in a few different areas, but I kind of like it because it gives us an opportunity to not just trailblaze, but trailblaze with data. Like
exactly.
It's kind of like there's already been a bit of a pilot. You're not like just flailing saying let's try it and see what happens. So
exactly.
It's kind of nice. I think I'm very purpose driven. I know you are too, and so I think it's very cool to stand behind something has substance. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you do something that is forward facing. When you're in a sales role, you got to believe in what you're doing. You got to believe in what you're selling. You can't just be selling a product or technology for the sake of it. You got to believe that it's actually going to impact people, impact their lives. And so that's part of why I was intentional about where I went after LinkedIn and where I'm at now with Degreed. So it's fantastic.
That's awesome. And what a career trajectory. You've grown so quickly in sales, and like you're not just doing hands-on stuff, you're doing strategy and you're doing leadership, and very, very proud of you and inspired by you. It's awesome.
Jules, thank you.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about Degreed because I don't remember. Well, it must have been when we talked about you moving to Degreed that I thought about them again, because I hadn't thought about Degreed in a very, very long time. And it must have been then that I went to their website to just kind of see, how things have changed and what's going on. And I think it's the career page or maybe the About Us page. I don't know. But there's a page that talks about what you get when you come to work with Degreed. And, you can work from anywhere. And I remember something like unlimited vacation. And I like that those principles align very much with the things I believe in, right? Because you bring people on who love the work, and then if they need a break, they sure as hell earned it, But that kind of culture and putting those entitlements, those benefits out there for employees has got to make a lot of companies shaking their boots. And so I'm wondering what is that like? Do you find that it helps, hinders performance? Do you find that it's, I don't know, some kind of like big relief? Like, how does that feel for you as a person and culturally in the organization?
Yeah, can I say that there are a few things that really stood out and part of why I joined the company? And I think the first one is they were actually an early adopter in the remote work area. So where it's kind of a trend, right? Well, not a trend, it's a must-have. You got to be able to allow your employees to work remotely. Degreed has been doing this, so they've mastered it. It was almost no change at all with the pandemic. So that's number one. They have the work, kind of remote work piece down pat. The second thing to call out is, what comes with benefits, right? I think one is mindfulness, right? So every employee gets access to this app called Calm, which I'm a huge fan of. If you're a fan of Headspace or Calm, Calm's the same thing. LeBron James put something out late last year. Watch the entire thing or listen to the entire thing, and I don't know. Speaking of goals, that's one of the things that I built in was meditating, and what an easy way to do it for free. Your company providing access to it as a subscription, unlimited vacation, and it goes on. But you really do feel like you're valued as an employee there. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
That's really awesome. And yeah, it's really cool. And I think I challenge any business owners out there, any leadership people out there that are watching this, to think critically about the rules we set, because they end up becoming defaults. But we make certain rules for certain moments in time and certain circumstances. And then we end up having to live with that. And so I really challenge folks out there to think critically about those kinds of rules and those kinds of benefits and entitlements, and don't be afraid to pilot something, because it's a nice gift for the short term, and if it doesn't work for your organization, that's fine. But you never know what might be the strange thing that improves performance. The counterintuitive thing. I've heard a lot of companies that go to 4-day work weeks, and they just, like, their productivity explodes. It's like counterintuitive, but
Agreed.
Go figure. You trust somebody, you put your faith in somebody, and they come through. It's like shocking.
Yeah, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? Well, then we revert back. Yeah. So always leading in the space, I think, is important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I also think, there's definitely this sense with a lot of people that folks have a sense of entitlement generally, like, I deserve this much when I graduate, or I want to be a millionaire by this age, or whatever. And the tough thing, I think, about being in Degreed's shoes, and I don't know what this is like at all. Maybe this is not a problem at all that they've got to deal with. But I think that the tough thing about putting your money where your mouth is with that kind of culture is, if someone doesn't fit in the culture, you have to say, sorry, but you don't fit in the culture, because you can't have somebody taking advantage. Like, everyone, I always go back to sports when I think of business, because on a sports team, you sweat, you bleed, you really push yourselves together, and you succeed or you fail together. And in my opinion, if everybody on the team isn't that in love with it, it's not going to succeed. And you should actually say, you're clearly not in love with this team. That's cool. Go find another team, or another sport altogether. It's all good.
That's true.
But it's hard for us to have those conversations. So, yeah, I think we have to be authentic, and then we have to follow through on that too. So interesting stuff. Maybe one day I can get a Degreed executive on the show, and we can talk about how that plays out in terms of finding people who self-select out. It's interesting
That's a
stuff.
good one. I'm sure we could figure something out there.
Very cool. Very cool. So next thing that I want to talk about, so career journey for the people who are listening today. I was going to say you and I are relatively young, but you are relatively young. I'm still pretending I'm relatively young. I feel young at heart, so I'm going with that. For people who are looking at you and saying, "That's cool. I want to be at that point when I'm, roughly his age or whatever, or that's my goal, and in the next, 3 to 5 years or whatever." What do you think got you to where you are right now? And I'm sure you have way more, ahead of you that you're going to set for yourself and achieve. But right now you're living someone's dream, and maybe you're even living your dream right now, which is that's the best scenario, right? But what advice do you have for somebody who's looking at you saying, "Oh, if I could just reach that, I'd be happy"? What advice do you have?
That's a good one. And for the record, for everyone listening, we're both millennials.
I'm like just on the cusp.
I
and
just want to call that out.
some definitions don't even include me, but that's fair. And honestly, you know me, I kind of straddle most lines, right? I'm like, I get what you're saying, but I get what you're saying.
Fair. I just have to put that on the record for everyone to
Fair
hear.
enough. I'll take
Um,
it. I'll take it.
yeah. So I mean, what would I like to think of this in the question, what would I tell my younger self, right?
Yeah.
Or, how would I position things? And I think number one is you don't have to have it all figured out, right? I think that's the main thing is I just kind of got into it, right? I didn't know when I was a teenager or when I was in university or even doing my master's that I would be where I am today. In fact, just like both of us, Joel, we have education, master's degrees, and things that we semi-apply to our job, but not fully, right? We're both not in our quote unquote career path as far as degrees go. And so
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, right? We're lifelong learners. I'm a lifelong learner. You're a lifelong learner. And as you learn, you grow, right? And I've just been following and going with it.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been following the track of sales, but I know I want, management, leadership is what's next for me, what I want to get into. So I'm following along and I'm putting in my time to make sure that when the time presents itself, I'm ready for it. So what I would tell my earlier self is you don't have to have it all figured out right away.
Yeah.
Kind of go with it, right? If something's feeling right, go with it. Kind of go with your gut instinct. And you can always, again, everything's a lesson learned, right?
Yeah.
I don't really think of things as a failure or successes. I learned here, I learned more there. How do I
Yes.
apply it to move forward?
Yeah, totally. I really love that. I actually saw an interview with an actor a few years ago who got his like biggest movie break in his like 70s or something. And there was a question to him like, did you think you weren't going to make it? Did you think no one would ever see your work and no one would ever know who you were? And and he said that if he could give himself advice when he was like 20, 30, it would be just keep doing what you love, working hard at that, and don't worry about it. It'll happen. And he said, if someone could have told me when I was 20 that it's going to happen, guaranteed, it's going to happen a lot later than you think. It's going to happen when you think it's too late, but you're going to make your mark. He's like, I could have enjoyed the last 50 years. And I really appreciated that because we're so hard on ourselves. And like getting to a goal, achieving a goal, it's like we don't stop and celebrate it for very long. And I think one of the things that was so special about, at least for me, my time at Learnography is how fun the process was.
Oh my goodness.
You
Oh,
know,
it's so amazing. Just building, right? It's okay, let's do the next thing. Let's do the next thing. So such a fast moving place.
Mhm.
And then being able to get into different things, right? You
Yeah.
weren't bounded to a specific job title or role. It's okay, how can I do these things and learn as much as I can as we
Yeah.
go?
I will never forget your innovation challenge presentation. I won't call out details, but I'll never forget it. It was
Oh my
great.
goodness.
Um, okay, so let's talk organizational culture. So we've talked a little bit about that in terms of like structure and how some of the employee benefits at Degreed. I can tell you a little bit about my company too, what that's like. But I also think it's very interesting our experience at Learnography, which is no longer, I don't believe is operating any longer. But we were there for a few years together, and it was just a perfect vibe. Like I loved everybody that we worked with. We were all so in on the same goal. Um, Hierarchy was, whatever. I remember sitting on the floor working with people for hours because there were no tables left.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was great. And, I love where I am right now. Super family oriented, amazing guys. The founders and my coworkers are amazing. And I don't want to say but. It's just and there was something about the Learnography culture where we all bought into the why. The why was so shared, and that's my holy grail for working anywhere. I want to work with people, for people that all feel aligned to the same goal. But I think that's a bit of a magical. It's a special recipe. I don't know. It's not a checklist that if you catch all of the check all the boxes, you're set. So I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on organizational culture? I don't know if you thought about it intentionally at the time or not, but I can't help but think that as we move on and we start to compare and see different dynamics, opinions develop about culture and what that means to us as individuals.
Mhm. You know, that's interesting you bring that up, right? The idea of what we had when we were there. Again, it's an and statement, right?
Yeah.
It's and what we did there and the
Yeah.
people that, that's part of what made it so lively and how well we gelled and the relationships we built.
Mm.
It's a perfect example here. I consider you my mentor. Again, it's one of the things that I'm very grateful for, and it's because of the culture we had. It was very open, as you said. It was the hierarchy technically on paper was there, but it didn't feel like it, right? You were able to go into the CEO's office, go into your office, just have these conversations when something was up, when you needed to brainstorm. And I do think that a lot of organizations should start to work on that, right? How do we cultivate an environment that is inclusive, right? And
Mm.
inclusive not just by way of standard definition. I mean, inclusive really, like how do we make people feel welcomed in an environment, especially when we tack on not being able to be all together in one place physically,
Hmm.
right? And that's been the key challenge I find and found in going remote, right? Before I
Yeah.
even joined Degree, LinkedIn had moved to a remote environment, and it was very sudden. And LinkedIn it is known for its culture, right? It scores top, super top class, right up there with Google's and the Facebooks. But the second you move to a virtual environment, it's like, okay, how do we maintain this level of culture? And
Hmm.
so I would just say the better you can as an organization cultivate culture by way of people and making people connect as humans, that's part of what we need to thrive is a human connection, needing to feel loved, needing to feel
Hmm.
included, needing to have
Yeah.
relationships. The better you can do that as an organization, I feel like the better
Mhm.
people will be as far as productivity, efficiency, and all the things that companies want of their people.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you used the word inclusive. Obviously, it means so many things today. But one of the things, I don't know if we talk about it very often in terms of this definition, but being able to bring all of yourself to work, right? Like there's the professional side that you're allowed to bring into the office, or whatever your work environment might be, and then there's the stuff that's unprofessional, whatever that means. And that I hate that stuff, because if you love a mission, you love it when you're in your suit or in your sneakers. It is who you are. And
Agreed.
so I feel like, when we're able to completely bring ourselves to work, I think all the cultural stuff falls into place and the hierarchy melts away, and we just become people who feel loved and heard, appreciated and fulfilled, because we can fully express ourselves.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think
agreed.
we really should have that there. Mhm.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just an atmosphere where you can do that, right? You get up every day. It's like, okay, I know I have a mission. It's not, oh, I'm going to work,
Yeah.
working my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
It is you're working your eyes open to eyes closed because you really believe in what you're doing, the objective and the
Mhm.
task at hand. You want to see it through, and that's what we did, right? It was okay. You're tired. Okay, let's pick up the ball. Let's do this together. Let's roll our sleeves up. I may not be a creative director. I may not be in that space of
Mhm.
design, but how about this idea? How can I help? And like vice versa, and that's the
Yeah.
environment that you want, right? It's how can we all help each other and grow together, lean on each other when needed.
Yeah, and there was, I think, a really awesome ability when we were super stretched, and we had a lot going on. We were at our busiest. We had a really strong ability to stay in our lanes and trust each other. But when we had the opportunity to collaborate, there were no barriers. Like I could say the silliest design thing, and I might get a little like, that's cute, but there was nothing other than ears wide open, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that inclusivity piece is very important. Um, let's talk about inclusion in the way that it is often talked about today. So I understand, and I might get the name wrong, there is a diversity and inclusion committee at Degree. Is that
Mhm.
correct? And
That's
you
correct.
are the co-chair.
Yeah, so diversity inclusion, and one of those subcommittees is that under that is
Okay.
race EQ or race equity. which is a BRG, a business resource group, and I co-lead that. That's correct. Very excited
Nice.
about it. Yeah.
Nice. What does that mean? I hate to sound ignorant, but I also never want to assume I understand fully. So what does that mean? You said race equity.
Yes. It's important that
What's the
people
goal
that are listening understand the difference.
there? Yeah.
Intentionally, we didn't say race equality, right? We say race equity.
Mm-hmm.
The practice of actually being able to make practices fair, whereas equality is closing the gap, right? And so for a long time, equality has been the focus, but we feel like
Yes.
it's a point now where we actually need to make things fair, right? Intentionally make
Yeah.
things fair, level the playing field. And my one friend, Alasana, he actually shared a pretty interesting metaphor. Imagine two people racing, one person running with a weight vest on, the other person fully healthy, no weight vest, but running the same 100-meter race, right? They both have the same opportunity to run, which is equality. The difference is one person's weighted, heavier,
Yeah.
right? And so their race is going to be naturally slower. That's what
Yes.
equity is, right? How do we take that weight vest off that person running so they both can race at the same time without weight on their back? That's the idea behind it.
Yeah, I really, really like that. I've heard other metaphors that didn't make as much sense to me, because I think the equity versus equality piece would be like shortening the track for the person with the weight on their back. And
Mm,
and that's not great either, because then it's like a concession. And
exactly.
who wants to get to something and not know they earned it?
Exactly.
And yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean they don't deserve it. That's a whole other issue. Like deserving, there are the vast majority of people in our world deserve more and don't deserve the crap they get. But deserving doesn't change any outcomes for anybody. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, how do we think about that equality piece in a way that empowers people to own their own self determination, their own success? I think that's
Exactly.
really, really
Yeah.
yeah. Can you give me one practical example of something that you guys are doing that you could recommend? Like a lot of companies out there don't have the size, the money to invest, the time to invest,
Mhm.
especially small organizations. But even a company with like, 8 people, there's value to diversity and inclusion, in my opinion, because like it's business. It would be stupid to have one person with their idea running everything. Like that might work for a short time, but the chances of it evolving are very low. um, they say, there's a quote, expertise is the enemy of innovation. We
Oh yeah.
need to be challenged,
Mhm.
so is there a practical thing that you guys are doing, or maybe a principle that you think might be helpful to companies that don't have the time to just stop and think and talk about this stuff?
Yeah, I think it starts with a conversation. I gotta say, there have been, last year was a pretty tough year for a lot of different reasons, right? One of those reasons is sometimes a clear divide, and I'm not going to get political, but one of the things that resulted is awareness brought to a situation where you understand certain people might be treated differently, right? It's very obvious, clear, and upfront. And I'm obviously talking about the George Floyd incidents, which the entire world at this point knows, right? And so from that, it's like, okay, how do we distill that and make that workplace appropriate? How do we have these conversations for people that may not relate, right? And I can say, not specifically a company that I work at or have worked at, there are people that do not have any, BIPOC, any colored friends, have never had a conversation with a colored person. And so their
Yeah.
understanding of colored people is what they read in the blogs, read in social
Hmm.
media, what they see on TV and movies. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of those things are portrayed negatively. And so
Yeah.
part of how I like to approach this and what I've tried to bring forward is, let's start the conversation, right? The first thing for you to do is understand where I'm coming from. I'm not asking for a handout. I want to work as hard as you, probably harder than you, to
Yeah.
earn my stripes, right? And that's
Yeah.
what I'm willing to do. That's what I've always done. That's the philosophy that I bring. And
Yeah, for
to answer
sure.
your question specifically, it's what can we do is have a conversation, right? Where are you in the journey of understanding the person in front of you? Um,
Hmm.
when you look around the room, how representative of society are you? how representative of Toronto are you? Knowing that
Yes.
Toronto is one of the most diverse cities globally, right? It's if you're not hiring intentionally to create a diverse team, gender, race, ethnicity, then you're doing yourself a disservice as an organization, right? And it's gotten to that point now. Harvard Business Review actually put out an article recently that talked about all the business reasons why we should have a diverse team, right? It's so
That's
even if you want to look at it from a diverse perspective, or a business perspective, there will be stats to tell you diverse teams perform better. They bring in more revenue. They are more creative. They are more innovative and agile, right? And so, however you look at it, there are only benefits in doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And when we were with Learnography, we did a lot of work on accessibility.
Okay.
And I remember work on, just dispelling some of the myths. And I don't remember any specific videos that we created or anything that I can point any viewers to. But I do remember a very simple and well documented stat that when you recruit a person with a disability, they take less time off overall and stay with you longer than an employee who doesn't have a disability. And this is dispelling the fear, because if especially if you're a small organization and you can barely afford to hire a person, um, you really can't afford to hire a person who's not going to be there. And so I understand if it's foreign to you, you might think, oh, someone with a disability must not be available as often. And you'll never know that's not the case if you don't put yourself out there, have these conversations, and get curious, right? It's that simple. That curiosity piece. I have to say, I generally want to meet people that are different than me for like, 'cause I just love it. It's so interesting and entertaining, and I don't want to talk to myself all the time. You know what I mean? Like, if I want to talk to people who had the same experiences as me, I'm lucky enough to have some family members. I've got sisters, I've got cousins, and that's awesome when I get to hang out with them. But I don't want to. I don't want to just have the same carbon copy person in my life over and over again. And so I've just always been interested in meeting different people. But the thing that always blows me away is how much we actually have in common. You know, it's so easy to think we're all so different,
Yeah.
but when you actually hear a story, and there's some magic in the story. When you hear somebody's story, it's so easy to relate, because you start feeling the feelings that they might have felt in that moment, and remember something that made you feel that way. You know,
Agreed. Yeah, and then this idea, whether
I
it be, sorry, finish your thought.
no, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was gonna say, yeah, there are so many things and commonalities that you have, right? And you're not limited to your geographic area. We have the internet now. There are so many ways that you can meet people, that you can step out of your comfort zone, that you can just be a kind person or an open person and welcome conversations to people that aren't like you. Give them
Yeah.
perspective and listen, right? I think that's the other thing. A lot of people, especially being in sales, people really, really, really like to talk about themselves, right? So, at the very minimum, get to know someone, reach out, have them tell you their story, right? Just listen and get their perspective. You might learn a thing or two. So that way, when you have another conversation, you meet someone like that, you have a bit more perspective. You have something else to offer, a different perspective. So,
Yeah, for sure. There is this really interesting article in I don't know what they actually call the magazine, but Queen's University puts out a magazine that it sends out to alumni. And
mhm.
there was this one article. So again, I don't remember the woman's name, but she's a prominent figure in the Queen's community. She went to school at Queen's, and she's a professional Black woman. And she told some stories about her experience. And in the article, one of the stories that stood out to me was, um, she said that she went to a meeting, and a man walked up to her as if he knew her and kind of continued a conversation and said, "Oh, sorry, I haven't followed up with you." Um, and she just politely said, "Oh, no, it's okay," and took part in the conversation, knowing full well that she was not the woman he had talked to, but he just mistook her as another woman, as another Black woman. And like, that is such a clear illustration to me. But what's of what that might be like, right? But at the same time, as a first generation woman from a Canadian woman from a very traditional poor ethnic background, I totally know that feeling of being not seen. And like I wouldn't know that I had that common ground with that woman if I didn't hear her story. So I really do love that idea of listening, having conversations. There's a lot to unpack. We are interesting people, all of
It's
us.
true. It's facts. We all have different experiences, perspectives, thoughts, and
Hmm.
beliefs, right? And that's what makes us human. There is no one human
Hmm.
that is alike the other. Even exact twins, right? Fraternal twins.
Yeah.
You're gonna think differently, although you kind of operate the same.
Hmm.
So just why not? Why not? And the other thing to think about too is even if you consider yourself an introvert, right? That's another thing. You
Hmm.
might be an introvert listening on this call and be like, I'm not going to go and reach out to someone random on LinkedIn to connect with them. Well,
Yeah.
that's fine. But, what about connecting with a friend that's connected with another person or being involved in a group session, right? There's so many different ways and avenues and people to do that,
Yeah.
especially
Hmm.
now being virtual and remote.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm just going to take this moment to say, anyone out there who's watching, where we've been talking about learning, we've been talking about inclusivity and what that means, and achieving our goals and growth. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to send them in as a comment, and we will engage. It's always a compliment to have people interested in engaging with us. To that point, Chris, I actually don't remember how it began, but I think he reached out to me. I think he just said, "Welcome to my network" or something on LinkedIn, and now I have the state representative from Montana, Jonathan Windy Boy. He's going to be on the show on February 5th. You know, like
Nice. I
how
love that.
crazy is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we just had a really cool conversation on LinkedIn that just was totally organic. And then I was like, "Hey, would you like to be on my show?" And there's so many things. What I really, really appreciated is, not only is he's a native, American native, and not only is he from a different culture than me that way. I come from a European background, and then I'm in Canada. But on top of that, there's different nomenclature for native and indigenous stuff in Canada and the US. And he never once made me feel bad for asking a question that he totally, like, in the world today, we all know what it feels like to have someone say, "That makes me uncomfortable," or, "What do you mean by that?" And I'm just so grateful that this stranger let me be curious and let me learn stuff. Um, and so I said to him, "Hey, let's have like a 10-minute call to see if we have the same vibe on the phone, and see if maybe you want to come on the show with me." And so we talked. We ended up talking for 40 minutes. And I was like, "Oh, we need to just set a date. We need to stop talking. This stuff is so interesting. We need to stop talking, and we need to set a date to do the show." And he just responded, "You mean you're not recording?" And it's just so funny to me how, like, I don't know, we're in so many ways, like, we have a lot of common ground, and then in some ways we have no common ground. Like, I was like, "You just need a webcam and good lighting." And he's like, "Sweetheart, I don't even have a computer." I'm like, "Okay, well, we'll figure this out." So
Mhm.
yeah, and that was really one of my big motivations about doing this show, is that um, I miss people. Here we are with this lockdown, and I was just thinking, I miss people. And you were one of the people that I thought of initially, was like, if life was happening like normal, we would have the opportunity. Either life would happen and it would be like, "Oh, I got to talk to you because you're the person I need to talk to about this," or we would cross paths. But here we are in this strange pandemic, and I miss being able to connect with people, the people I connect with regularly, and the people that I know and love and don't connect with regularly.
Mhm.
And I thought, you know what, maybe if I feel this way, maybe other people do too.
Yeah.
And I really firmly believe there's more that connects us than separates us. And I'm really just trying to bring that to folks. I'm curious about people. I hope they are too. And yeah, maybe we
Yeah,
can
we're
learn something
social
together.
beings, right? We're social beings. We need that human interaction, right? I have a lot of friends that are whatever, they're single or they don't have family around for whatever the case, whatever reason. And it's tough. I can tell you, it's tough when you close gyms, when you take away the ability to go and meet and hang out with people. It's like, well, that's mental health first off. I'm a big proponent of, and by the way, for everyone listening, I'm a huge proponent of, wearing masks, social distancing, and in fact, I work from home. I went out for the first time all week today for a run. I work out inside, but you know what I mean? And so the idea here is like, how do we maintain that level of really sanity is what I like to call it, right? Where you interact with your friends, but do so safely given our environment, right? It's tough. It is tough. It's challenging.
Yeah, for sure. And we need to rise to the challenge. Like generationally, if this is our big cross to bear, it's not a world war. We are pretty good. We're pretty lucky, and so it's so important. You talked about mental health and meditation, and I just love hearing that stuff. Like it's so critical to self-awareness, which I believe is step one for being strategic about anything. Like you can haphazardly accidentally fall into your goals by running against the wall. But in terms of being strategic, the first thing you need is self-awareness. You need to understand you. And that the one word that I'm not sure we've said yet exactly that I want to add is gratitude, even
Right.
when things don't feel great,
Mm-hmm.
We're still really,
Yeah, I
really lucky.
agree. I agree to that point, right? Gratitude. And that's actually one of the things that I've been really thinking about. How can I express my gratitude more often, right? Whether it be just speaking things into the universe, calling someone up, letting them know I appreciate them, because sometimes that's missed, right? There's one thing that I have really learned is that call people and let them know you love them, let them know you care about them, and be grateful because as you said, and you opened this up, you might be living someone else's dream right now, even though you're chasing something else, right? Or want another, whether it be more money or children or whatever, a certain lifestyle, a certain car, if it's material, whatever the case, that's the thing. You just stop and just appreciate what you have today, right? And I'm a huge fan. I'm with you, Jewel, and gratitude for sure.
So it is the beginning of the year, and the vast majority of New Year's resolutions are fitness related. I know that you are always investing in your physical well-being too. You're a fit guy, and you love the workout, the process. So that's cool. That's a bit of a challenge for me. That is something that doesn't come naturally to me. I did play some sports as a teen and like some competitive sports, and I did all right, but it was something I really had to try at. And this year I turned 40. Okay, so 40 damn years old, and it's more important now than ever that I take care of myself. And from a goals perspective, I had a guest on a few weeks ago, Professor Titch. I can't remember the university right now, but he studies fitness in relation to oncology outcomes. Really interesting stuff. And he talked about having micro goals, like set the tiniest little goal for yourself. And so I've been doing that, and it's been really good, setting just a tiny little goal. I'm going to walk this many steps a day, or I'm going to stretch. Anytime I'm watching television, this is a new one for me, but it's really good. Anytime I'm watching television, I'm stretching. I'm
Nice.
not just sitting there eating or just watching. Stretch.
Nice.
So you're an ambitious dude, but you're also an ambitious guy professionally who invests in your physical well-being. And so I'm wondering, especially at this time of year, what do you have to say about investing in yourself? Like I didn't even expect our conversation to go down that path so much, but clearly you've got some great tips for people practically on how to be in touch with themselves. So I'm wondering, from a fitness perspective, what do you tell people in January?
Yeah, it's I never shut down people that have lofty resolutions. All I would say is apply, and it's very fitting, apply smart, specific, measurable, actionable, specific results to your goals, because it's easy to say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, but what are you looking to achieve at the gym, right? Why are you going to the gym? How long are you going to the gym? What do you want to, what are your goals, right? And I agree with that professor. The micro goals are the easiest, because it's one thing to go really hard for a month and then fall off for 3 months. It's better that you go once a week for 3 months as opposed to going every day for 1 month and then falling off for two, you know? And
Yeah,
so that's
totally.
the thing. I find it's just consistency, building a good habit, and then everything else falls into play,
Mhm.
right? Don't be too hard on yourself. One missed day doesn't set you back. It's just pick up the next day where you
Mhm.
left off. That's the other thing that I
Yeah,
find works well, especially with things being shut down. It's how can we be creative at home? What can we do to make our environment more
yes.
conducive to, you know, a good place to work out, right? So whether you buy weights and you do things at home, whether you want to be lofting, buy Peloton, whatever the case may be, find a way to stay active, right? That's one of the, I
Yeah,
put out a LinkedIn post not too long ago that was basically exactly that, right? It's set these goals, hold yourself accountable. Don't feel like you need to, if you miss one day, don't feel like you need to reset, pick back up where you left off and just keep
yeah,
going.
yeah, for sure. One of the things that, like, I've tried that whole, like, set a small goal, like, you know,
Mhm.
lift, do it, weight training for 10 minutes a day or whatever. What I found for me was I could do that consistently. Like, I was really good at setting a small goal. It's actually interesting. My friend she's got a PhD in psychology, and she studied goals specific to fitness.
Nice.
And it's interesting. I'm surrounded by these people who are very fit, and and then I'm like, oh, I hate this stuff. But she suggested to me that I try doing, like, setting a really really tiny goal. This was a few years ago. Um, do 1 minute of of some type of strength training every day for a week, and if I succeed, then the next week I do 2 minutes, and then the next week I do 3 minutes. And it was really really interesting because I went, like, up to, I don't know, maybe like 16 minutes a day. And what I found was, when I had set my goal at 5 minutes a day, I was more likely to do 30 minutes. When I set my goal anything beyond 5 minutes, I was more likely to tell myself, I don't have time.
Hmm.
So crazy. So, like, oh, I don't have 6 minutes, which is stupid, but it's just that's my, my muscle memory, my
Did your
default.
friend break it
And
down as
so I
to
went.
why that might be?
She asked if she could do it as a bit of an experiment. She had questions about, what would be a really really great coaching fitness program for people that don't love working out but really need to prioritize this. And she said, so I'd really love to try some of my theories out. Can I try them on you? And the really interesting thing is, I discovered that 5 minute commitment thing. I couldn't tell myself I don't have the time. 5 minutes, it's like, come on, Juliana, you can do this. It's ridiculous. But then I actually enjoyed it, and I would stay and do it longer. Um, and there's another thing I was going to say about that. Oh, the other interesting thing is, I ended up losing 10 pounds without really changing my life. And I kept that off for like a year and a half, again, without trying. It just became part of my day. It was very easy. This time around, I'm doing something a little different. I am not aiming for a certain number of, like, I'm not aiming to lose a certain amount of weight, or put in a certain number of minutes. I'm just trying to find ways to enjoy moving. That's my goal. I
Nice.
really just, like, I've learned to love stretching. Like, I really love stretching. It feels so good. It's like a massage. I really, really love it. Um, and I hate running. It's just not for me. And even though I have very little rhythm, I love to dance. So I we'll do like family dance time in our house. It's a great way to be active. And like 20, 30 minutes later, I've sweated out hard, and it doesn't even feel like that much time passed.
Nice. What are you
So
dancing to?
that's
What
what I'm
kind of
trying to
music?
connect. It really depends. My daughter is a huge fan of Queen. She's she's constantly walking around going, "We will, we will." It's so funny. And then my son, go figure, because stereotypically you might assume the opposite, but my son really loves. Are they show tunes? Like, he loves, like, Disney music and like live Broadway music. loves it. And then my husband's major into music, so we'll play rock music, we'll play the top 20. I'm like probably one of the strangest pieces of the Post Malone fan club. You know what I mean? So just about anything. You know
Nice.
me. I like anything with a nice harmony. You know?
Yep, you
Yeah.
get the full genres.
Yeah. Really. Like sometimes I get in the mood for some old school gospel because that's what I grew up with, and I'll even force them to dance with me through that. So it's
Jules,
good
whatever feels
because
right through it. Yeah, especially when it
yeah,
comes to dancing, just express.
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
So it's interesting. Sometimes the goal just needs to be love the process. So
yeah.
make that work. There's one other little story that I think you might find interesting. Um, there was it was Jim Quick, and he was interviewing the author of some book, and the author was talking about how he was coaching a guy who um, he had like obesity issues. He was very unhealthy, and he really wanted to get fit. And the coach told him, for 1 month, your only goal is to go to the gym. It's not to work out. If you drive there and drive home, that's okay. You've succeeded. And he felt like an idiot to tell himself, I'm not even driving there today, you know? So the days where he was like, I'm not going to the gym. There's no way I'm going to the gym. He would say, well, you know what? I'll drive there on my way home, or I'm just going to drive there, come back, and then I'll watch TV. But the really cool thing is, over that month, he drove to the gym every day, and almost half of the times he drove there, he went in because he was already there.
Wow.
And the coach's goal was to the coach said to him, I want you to become the kind of guy who goes to the gym. And like such a simple concept, just become the kind of guy who goes to the gym. And he did, by not trying to be something else, which, I just think, you talked about the fact that you and I started our education in very different fields, both of us in sort of the political realm, and are doing more like business growth work and in learning and that sort of thing. And I can't help but feel that the transferable skills are the ones that, man, they become the common thread that we keep exercising throughout our whole lives, even if the job title changes or the industry changes or whatever.
Big
Um,
time. Yeah.
yeah,
You think about the skills that you have that you go to school for, um, and the things you learn from school, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm learning calculus, algebra, whatever, science. Some people apply those skills to their roles, sure, right? But most of the people don't, right? It's like, how much of this am I actually going to bring forward? And so the formal educational system teaches you, I'm going to say, patience. It teaches you discipline. And it's basically a way, it's credibility, right? It shows employers that, look, I have the ability to learn and do things in a disciplined manner. It doesn't show, it's
yeah,
not a good indicator of how good of an employee you'll be, or if you're your own person, what type of business you'll start, or an indicator of your future success at all, right? So I agree, those
mhm,
transferable skills are super key. And it's something that you kind of learn by doing, right? So
for sure. Now that you're at your degree and you have all this access to learning materials, is there something that you've learned or want to learn or are learning that you didn't think you were going to end up either having the chance or ever caring about? Just kind of curious of that winding road we go down, you know?
so yeah, a couple of things. One, on the hobby side, investing, like actually potentially like investing in trading, and obviously you need time to do those things. But I have really taken courses. I have kind of self-taught myself things to learn, everything
Yeah.
down from price equity ratios, like how to actually determine how to buy stock, what type of stock, through to, on the computer side, things like cloud computing. Very random.
Mm.
Now I'm kind of into astrophysics. So I kind of bounce all over the
Oh, wow.
place
I
and
love
things to
it.
just learn about and read about. And I just find it fascinating. Although I'm never going to apply these things, well, maybe
Yeah.
investing, yes, but definitely not
Yeah.
astrophysics. I just want to know what it is. How does it work? So, yeah.
I know what you mean. You're becoming a real Renaissance man with all of these different sides of you, which is really cool.
Yeah.
You might remember how much of a productivity and like project management nerd I am. My husband's an engineer. I'm very interested in efficiency. And the strange thing is, the more I learn about it, the more I apply it,
Right.
I come across all these opportunities to be like, actually, if we do this, we'll be able to eliminate all of these steps or whatever. And just never know. You never know where you might apply like some astrophysics principles, and
Yeah.
somebody's already solved our problems. We just don't know that that's discipline yet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was so true.
So we're coming up on an hour, and I want to respect everyone's time and lives and stuff. But I do want to talk about the fact that, and I hope it's okay. Actually, I'm not sure if I asked if this was okay, but you're a new dad, right?
I am.
And I talk about learning curve and talk about growing and developing. Um, and I know it's early days, and so you're focused on things like you know be careful when you walk, and don't don't hurt yourself, and what are you putting in your mouth, and all of that. But
Mhm.
I think it gives us the opportunity to think about the kind of world we're creating as parents and what we want to teach our kids. Um, and so I think that might be, sometimes just the lowest common denominator is what strikes a chord. And so I'm curious, with your child, um, what perspective do you have as a professional, as a Black man, as a young man that's trying to provide for his family? What kind of world are you trying to create, and what do you want him to see? What do you want him to grow up with?
Yeah. Well, I want to pick up on the thread that you brought up earlier in our conversation, which is gratitude, right? Very personally, I want to just call out the fact that I've been blessed with a child, because
Yeah.
it is a privilege. Just want to call that out. The second thing is I had no idea what I was getting into as being a father. It is
It's
the
so
best thing, and
true.
I mean that in the best way. But you can plan, you can read all the books, you can go to all of the
Yeah.
classes, you can hear all
Yeah.
the advice from existing parents. But then when that baby comes, your life changes, and it changes forever in the best possible way. That's how and I have a couple of
Yeah.
friends actually. I was talking about this over the weekend, last weekend. They asked me, and none of them are fathers yet. They had asked me, what is it like to be a father or to be a parent in general? And I said, just imagining wanting nothing but success for this
Hmm.
person, for a person, right? Nothing but success, unconditional type of love. And you
Hmm.
don't really get that until you have your own offspring, until you have a child or, a child in your life. And so that's the thing, being a dad has been amazing. On my screen right now, my
Hmm.
screensaver, I don't know, can I share my screensaver
You
is,
probably can.
can
I
I?
haven't done it, but you probably can. Yeah, you totally
Let's,
can. Yeah, there's a share screen, I think, in the center bottom.
let's see if I can do this. Check this out. This is my screensaver.
Let's see if is it
Is
working?
this sharing? Is this sharing?
I'm
It
not
says
seeing
sharing.
anything.
Oh, okay. Anyway, if you
Is
can't
it
see it
not
right now, for
working?
anyone that's watching, I'll stop sharing.
Oh,
But
I'm
it is a
sorry,
picture
man.
of no, it's a picture of me and my son over in Blue Mountain. I'm just flexing because that's how I feel. When you're with your
Yeah,
kid, it's just the most undeniable feeling of just
yeah,
pure bliss and happiness, and seeing him go through the stages. So I'll
totally.
stop there, but it's just been amazing. He's a bit
Yeah,
over a year old
um,
now, and yeah,
for sure. And I remember looking at my dad thinking he was the smartest, strongest man in the world. And it's a bit of a weird realization as you grow up and you're like, I don't think he can do anything. But it's a pretty amazing feeling to feel that way as a child. Sometimes that's the kind of language I use to remind myself of my goal. Like I want to love with the heart of a child. I want to have fun with the heart of a child,
right.
because it is it's gracious, and it's just vulnerable and open and curious, without
Agreed.
all of the silly rules we put in the way. So I'm really happy you're dad. I'm happy for both you and your girl. It's an exciting journey that will stretch you and grow you in ways you didn't know you could.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's
for
really,
sure.
really
Learning
awesome.
the learning and talking about upskilling learning. There's no manual for being a parent, right? It's just learning by doing, and it's been a great adventure so far. So, so far so good at
Yeah.
least.
For sure. It's like trial by fire, but the fire is like dirty diapers and food frying flying through the air, you know?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
insanity.
exactly. Oh my
Just
gosh, so good.
insanity. Yeah, so I've got a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old, and it's great because now they both want to sleep in the same room and they kind of occupy each other, you know? I don't get called as many times in the middle of the night, "Mommy?" You know, so it's great. You know, they got each
Right.
other's backs. And you just never know what's going to be a challenge and what's going to be the greatest blessing and all of that. So
Mhm.
um,
And I'm sure
and I
they're
am
growing close and tight, as they get older, growing together and all
for
that,
sure.
which is amazing.
For sure, and that's really interesting. My boy is he's on the spectrum, and he doesn't connect with just anybody. And to see him connecting with my daughter, and um, I don't know, they challenge me. Even just seeing the way they get along challenges me because sometimes they're like in fight mode, and I'm like, I didn't see it coming. But sometimes they're in love mode, and I didn't see it coming. So it's just really interesting seeing them get to know each other. So yeah, it's really good stuff.
I
It
love that.
really is another opportunity to experience things after you've already experienced so much in life. To experience things through their eyes, and through another perspective because
Oh,
you
so
feel
good.
them, you know?
Yep. And
Mhm.
they're a natural
Um,
extension of you for sure. So totally feel
yeah,
them.
totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. I am a bit of a cheese ball, but whatever, I'm just going to embrace it. I'm very grateful for you in my life. And I know that we've had times where we've been really close and times where we haven't been so close. Um, and I don't know what it is, but there's something about you that it's like a kinship. Like I just feel connected to you, and I'm so proud to see you growing. And anything that I can do to support your journey, I'm here and I care. And yeah, I'm glad that you came to do this tonight. But I'm glad that I know you, and that we even had the opportunity. I had the opportunity to ask you. So thank you. Thanks for being in my life.
Jewel, really, really appreciate that. And for everyone listening, Jewel has been, again, a guiding star for me for years now. So I appreciate you, and that means the world for you to say that in this public space. So thank you. And it's really been a pleasure to be part of this and part of your vision here. So thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm sure I'll bug you again to have you back. And when things are normal, hopefully we'll be able to do this in real life.
Yes,
For
for
anybody who
sure.
doesn't know, I enjoy my glasses. So, all right. All
Agreed.
right. Thank you so much. Everyone out there, thank you for giving us your eyeballs, your attention, your time. It is priceless. And I really hope that this might have helped you on your journey. You're setting your goals and thinking about learning in new and creative ways. And can't wait to see you again next week. And yeah, love you all. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye bye.
Bye.